In a studio that's in a basement comes the epic story of how two friends changed the future of the movie podcast game forever. The reviews are in. Boys Life magazine gives the High Sci podcast 4.5 acorns. The Daily Bugle says, these guys are super legit. And Pope Francis declares the podcast as life-affirming. From the kid who tried to get smart with David Spade and got fucking old.
You're still out. You're still back.
And the guy who can name all four Baldwin brothers.
Alec, William, Daniel, and the baby boy, Stephen.
Live from the studio of his parents' basement. The Have You Seen It podcast.
Hello and welcome back to the Have You Seen It podcast. My name is Mason Knight, and sitting across from me is the one and only Cash Kraus. You will not find another like him.
No, you will. I don't know if it's a good thing or a bad thing.
I would say in most cases, a one of a kind is a good thing.
Sometimes. I'd say you won't find another Hitler.
I pray to God not.
There might be another one brewing out there somewhere in the early stage of his artistic days.
Right.
So we don't know yet.
A failed painter.
Yeah, we just
got very upset.
We just don't know yet. But I'm glad to be here, of course, as always.
As always.
This is a throwback theater day, so I'm fucking excited, and I could not be more excited to talk about the film that we are talking about today.
As am I.
I can't believe this is one of my favorite thrillers of all time. I can't believe we haven't done it on. We've done this podcast for 4 years now.
We have, yeah.
Coming
up on 4 years.
I can't believe I have not brought this film up to review.
Well, and I cannot believe I have not seen this
You
film.
have never seen it. And the film we're talking about, of course, is Prisoners.
Yes.
Directed by, I'll say it once, Denis Villeneuve.
Okay.
Denis Villeneuve. Yeah, he's French-Canadian.
Yes.
They put a little flair on
They
everything.
do give a little bit of a flair, that's for sure. Because I always call him Dennis.
Do not call a French guy named Dennis. He might stab you to death.
He very well could. He will lose everything.
Dennis? Yeah.
Just sets him off. It's like Marty McFly being called Chicken.
Yeah.
Don't nobody calls me Chicken.
Well, I hate the fucking name Dennis. I don't know why. It's not a great name, but Denis is a cool name. But
Denis cool, yeah.
It's Dennis, most likely, if he came anywhere else. But Denis Villeneuve, back in 2013, he was a little unknown. I mean, he'd done other films, smaller films.
Definitely not as well known as he is today.
Yeah, let's ramble off some of the films he's done recently. Arrival, Blade Runner 2049, Sicario, all of those films.
Horrible films.
Yeah.
Just
well, they're B. A lot of B actors. But all of those films have been nominated for Academy Award in one capacity or another. Whether it be writing, special effects, best direction, and this film is no different.
No, it's not.
This film is chocked full of Academy Award
You
nominees.
missed a big one that's coming out this year.
Well, yeah, I don't like to talk about it yet because technically maybe it will never come out.
That's true. Maybe it won't.
I don't want to get my hopes up.
Under the Warner Brothers, I think it is going to be dropped at the end of this year and streaming.
There's a big fight right now between Dune and Warner Brothers.
I'm sure there is. With how much money
it's actually
and time was
between
invested
Dune
in
and
that?
Legacy. Legacy is another production company that's doing it. I think they are suing Warner Brothers.
I think they'll get it in theaters. I really do.
Well, everything that's dropping on streaming is supposed to be dropping in theaters also. If you live in fucking Tennessee or whatever the theaters are still open. It's some southern
You can pass
state.
on the whole Wonder Woman thing being in theaters.
Yeah, that obvious. I think it did go to theaters somewhere. I'm sure it went.
No, it did.
Yeah. But
in certain areas of the country.
But yeah, this film, yeah, so he's up. I mean, he's the hottest director in my opinion. He's fucking everything he does. It's just crazy his trajectory. You know, he had one really good film, and then they just said let him do anything.
Yeah,
you know, because all of his films are just are crazy. I mean, to do a sequel to Blade Runner, 40 years coming, no one wanted to touch it.
And before this podcast started, before we even reviewed this film, we were talking in this room about how beautiful Blade Runner 2049 was.
Oh, the most beautiful film of the last 20 years.
Well, and we reviewed it on this podcast a few years ago, back when we used to do painstakingly long reviews.
Yes.
And I think our Blade Runner one was like an hour and 45, 2 hours.
Yes.
That podcast. We love the film. So,
we loved it, and I would talk about it for another 2 hours if I could have.
could.
But let me talk about the cast in Prisoners.
yes.
All Academy Award nominees: Hugh Jackman, Jake Gyllenhaal, Viola Davis, Terrence Howard, crazy ass Terrence Howard, guy's nuttier than a fucking nut factory, off the handle nuts. And one of my favorite actors.
Yes.
I am the biggest fucking Paul Dano fan. I love his choices. He only chooses roles that are gonna fucking push him to the edge. Probably.
Yeah.
He's never just like a mailman or a guy that works at an ice cream parlor.
Nope.
He's
Always unique and interesting roles.
and unique into a way where it's like, oh, these characters have probably never even been written before. It's amazing. Did you ever see Swiss Army Man?
Of course. One of my favorite films of that year.
I loved it.
Incredible. And such a weird and nutty concept. In the end, too, was what really sold it for, because I didn't even think about that.
Yes.
And then when it was revealed, I'm not going to spoil it, but I was like, oh my God, this movie is awesome.
Yeah, and yeah, he's just great. He's awesome in everything he does. I don't think I've ever seen a Paul Dano film where I'm like, oh my God, that fucking sucked. Yep. He was great in Little Miss Sunshine. He's been in a ton of stuff, but he also is the new Riddler.
He is a new Riddler. I love that choice.
Oh my God. I told you I'd love him in anything.
I do want to talk about another actor in this film, which you already brought him up, but I truly believe this is his best performance I've ever seen him.
Without a doubt. I already know what you're saying.
Hugh Jackman.
Yes.
Yes. I have not seen The Greatest Showman, but
I promise you, it's not
a joke.
I have seen it.
Oh, you have?
Hated it.
Yeah, dude. I remember that was
He
like a big
loves-
thing, and
This guy could be a 3-time Oscar winner if he didn't love to sing and dance so damn much.
I do love Hugh Jackman though. Just
I love
who
him too.
he is, like,
but it kind of grinds my gears to see him in this film and be like, that's the Hugh Jackman. But I mean,
in the acting, it's just.
I'm going to argue with this and Logan being his best film.
Yeah,
Because the
Logan was
range
very
he
good as
shows
well.
in Logan,
Yeah, that's very true.
he goes deep. He goes as deep in this film that he does in Logan, which is
That's a fair point.
phenomenal because it's a superhero film and you just don't see that. But yeah, he's so damn good.
He is.
And he's such a cool guy.
He is a cool
Everything
guy.
I've ever heard is that he's just fucking fantastic to be around.
Yeah, absolutely. I've heard nothing but good things about Hugh Jackman too.
Yeah, and you don't get that a lot.
No.
There's almost always one story about someone being an asshole.
Yeah.
But everyone says he's great. But yeah, he is great. If you don't know about this film, it has a very simple premise. It's a thriller. Hugh Jackman plays a dad, and he's got a daughter. And Terrence Howard plays a dad, and they're neighbors.
Yep.
And one day their kids are playing out in the street, or they go out by themselves, and they get taken.
They do.
And that's it. From there, it's
And unfortunately, Liam Neeson was not called for that.
No, he was not, because if he had been,
He will find you.
that lady's ass would have been kicked
killed.
6 different times.
Would have been a very short film. He would
Yeah.
have found her immediately.
He would have, he would have fucking destroyed her. But yeah, and that's it. And then it becomes one dad's journey to get his daughter back.
By any
But
means
you really
necessary.
do start to question if he lost it or not.
Yeah. Yeah.
And this is a film that we're gonna get into spoilers, but this is a film, and I talked about it off air. But Denis Villeneuve, his films, every film warrants a second viewing because you pick up things every time you rewatch. And this film takes a completely different tone watching the second time when you know the history behind Paul Dano's character, and you know the history behind the guy with all the snakes, and that they were both victims of
They're
kidnapping.
both prisoners.
It's a fucking insane twist. Yeah, and then you realize the whole prisoners thing is kind of we're all fucking prisoners. It's wild. But there's so many small things
Small details you had to pay attention
that
to.
allude to bigger things too, like the maze and like
And then the corpse under the Catholic priest's house. Or
and then
whatever that
Jake
was.
Gyllenhaal's character, his name is Loki, and he wears like he has dead language tattoos on his hand, and he wears a Freemason ring. So it all builds like there's so much more like behind just this simple kidnapping.
Right.
Because we get the story, the writing is great, is the story is towards the end we figure out that this couple has started kidnapping kids to wage a war against God.
Against God because their son had died from cancer as a child.
Yes. And it's
which is dark.
And it's a very small detail. They don't go a lot into that at all.
I don't
you
think
never
you need
see
to.
that you exactly,
Yeah.
but it just gives you like, what did this guy
it
really
allows
work?
your mind to have an imagination as to what went down.
Yeah, like
how it went down.
was this couple part of a bigger fucking thing where they were allowed to kill 16 children with no repercussions at all? Yeah. Was there a bigger, and is Jake Gyllenhaal's character kind of this this good force, this force that was sent to fight this evil?
And
That's
ironically
the kind of thing.
named Loki, God of Mischief.
Yeah, exactly. Mm-hmm. So there's so many small parts, and apparently all that stuff, like the tattoos and the Freemason ring, was all Jake Gyllenhaal's idea.
Really?
It wasn't part of the script.
Yeah.
And his twitch, his kind of Tourette's that he has, his idea.
And that's something I want to bring up about Jake.
Yeah, we barely even talked about him.
Yeah, I know. But it's one of those things where it's like you see Jake Gyllenhaal, he's fantastic. Like you don't even have to bring it up.
Yeah.
I mean, you should. You absolutely should. You should give the man the credit where credit is due. But one thing I've noticed in his work is he always, and it's always sometimes it's so subtle that you won't pick up the entire film. But if you watch carefully, there's always a physicality to his acting.
Yes.
And he picks something specific. It's not always a tick or whatever, but it's even movements. And that is what you teach in acting.
Yeah.
Like, are those subtle mannerisms to give your character life.
Yeah, you got to bring something to that character
Yes.
more than just a right, and that gives it that human, and that's
he
what
does that
takes,
so well.
and that's what takes a good film and a good performance to a great performance.
Yes.
And that's why this film ranks so high. It ranks up there with like Silence of the Lambs as far as thrillers go. It's just such a good thriller. But yeah, Jake Gyllenhaal character, he's so fucking cool. Never lost. Detective Loki has never
Undefeated.
Yep.
Yep.
Has found every single murder victim, or has found every kidnapping, or has found the culprit of every murder and everything like that. So he's up against a tough one.
Yeah, I'd say so.
But there's so much mystery behind him. He's like this small town detective, but he's like obviously so much cooler than everyone else.
Yeah.
It's very strange almost. But again, it almost seems like he's like sent from somewhere to fucking help these kids. But yeah, 16 kids.
It's a lot of kids.
It's a lot of
It's a lot of kids. I don't understand how people don't ask more questions.
Yeah.
But again, it alludes back to, was there more behind this? Were
Yeah.
they given permission by something?
some kind
entity?
of nefarious
Yes.
something. And it's, again, I love it because it's never spoken about. It's the maze that he wears around his neck and the maze that the
The
victims, right?
unsolvable maze.
It's never talked about at all. There's no context to it.
Nope.
There's zero.
But what I do love is the way that they went about showing how they would enslave these children, essentially, right? They're prisoners. And then they would give them
a cocktail
a cocktail
of
of drugs. And then tell these
I think it was
kids,
Haldol they were giving him.
you can leave as soon as you finish this maze book, but the last maze in that book was unsolvable.
Yeah.
So the kids would literally lose their mind
just
while
die.
they're being drugged and sedated.
Or eventually, they'd just grow up. They'd spend fucking 15, 20 years with these people and become complete shells of people, And
That's a mentality of a 9-year-old.
And that's why the second viewing and the third viewing and the fourth viewing completely takes on a different tone of when they first arrest Paul Dano. And this is just one scene, but there's so many scenes like this. And they're like, if you don't talk, your aunt will go to jail. And if you don't say anything, but he's just sitting there not doing anything. But you got to think after the second viewing, you're thinking, oh, good. He's hoping she thrown
goes to jail, of course.
So it's a wild fucking mind fuck. And then Hugh Jackman shaking him, and he's like, I don't want to. I mean, he's mentally handicapped, obviously. He has
gone through an immense amount of trauma.
Yeah, I think they say he has intelligence of like
A 9-year-old
a
or a
9-year-old or
10-year-old,
something like that. He
yeah.
can barely write his name from trauma, obviously.
Yeah, severe trauma.
And from being drugged every day, that's going to fuck with your brain a lot.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's just that second viewing, that he's that victim, and it just works against everything.
Yeah, it does.
He doesn't want to talk because he wants her ass thrown in fucking jail. But he doesn't have the intelligence just to come out and say, She's been kidnapped.
And I did love when Hugh Jackman decided his character, and I should know the character, Keller Dover, when Keller, which is Hugh Jackman, was tailing Paul Dano. And the one scene that stuck out in my mind where and I love the way that Denis did this, is he really made it look like Paul Dano was actually the one, because he's walking the dog.
Yes.
And he just lifts the dog up.
Yeah, tortures it.
Just stares at it as it's hanging.
Yeah.
Like pretty gruesome scene, especially if you're an animal lover. And you look over at the dog and he goes, "All right, Rex, let's go for a walk."
Yeah.
And then just eerily holds it for another 5 seconds after he says that.
Well,
and then sets the dog down and begins to walk.
That's what's
Weird,
so
creepy.
good about the writing is we are all in the perspective of Hugh Jackman.
Yes.
And at the start, we are all 100% sure Paul Dano did it. We are all exactly in his shoes. And that's such good writing to be able to do that. But we are all in his shoes. We are all 100. I'm sure your first viewing, I'm sure you thought.
Oh, absolutely.
Because then he goes to the police station or whatever before the dog happens, and he thinks he said something. It's not for sure.
Yeah.
We don't.
That whisper and the scuffle outside of the police station.
It's never confirmed that, and then you could start questioning: did he really hear anything, or is this
Or is
just
this guy
that
just
he is
want
so
him to be
that
guilty?
he's so deep at this point he can't back down, he can't backpedal, because it's the only hope he has to get his daughter back. So you really start to question all these things of if Paul Dano really did it.
Another really good writing as well. You know, because when a child is abducted, as most people know this, the first 48 hours are the most crucial. Anything after that, and your odds go down drastically, right? And I really like that because it put a timetable element for Hugh Jackman. So as time went on, he became more desperate.
More unhinged, yeah.
More unhinged, yeah. I mean, to where it escalates to where he literally locks this man in an abandoned apartment, I'm assuming, or whatever, abandoned house type thing.
Yeah.
And then the torture scenes, dude, I'm just like, oh my God, this is insane.
Well, that was his father's apartments. Remember that?
That's right, that he gave to him, but it was abandoned.
Well, his father, they talk about just a little bit, and again, you just feel like there's so much more. His father killed himself in the apartments when he was 10, and they gave him. That's why Hugh Jackman never wanted to go back to the apartments, because now the son's like, why don't you sell those fucking apartments? And then he just gives some excuse, you know. But yeah, it's those apartments. But yeah, like you said, as it goes on, as he gets deeper and deeper, it's that kind of thing where it's like he just has to double down every time. Because as soon as you start to doubt it, you start realizing
this is fucked.
I'm just torturing a mentally handicapped guy. If this guy is not guilty, people are not gonna fucking look at this.
No, they're not going to look at it well at all. And again, it goes back to taking the law in your own hands. Like, there are severe punishments for that.
Yeah, absolutely.
It doesn't matter if your child is missing or not. So, but again, that's that give and take, that poll where you're looking at Hugh Jackman's character and you're trying to sympathize with him while also this isn't really the right thing to do.
No.
I like the pull and give and take. You know.
Yeah.
That, though.
Then he
I
gets
like
Terrence Howard in on it,
and then
and
Terrence
he doesn't
Howard,
want any part.
even he's like, hey, I'm out of this shit.
Yeah,
Are
I'm
you
crazy,
kidding
but-
me? Yeah.
But yeah, this is a very subdued Terrence Howard too, which is this is 2013, so I think it's before he really went off the fucking handle. But yeah, he's great. Then Viola Davis gets in on it, and she's fucking awesome. She's like, we got to do it. We got to keep doing it.
I know.
Terrence Howard's the only one that doubts it.
Yeah.
Viola Davis, she's
Said,
fucking.
here, let me turn it on.
Is this one on? Is that one on?
Yeah, here, let me participate in this.
And I love Hugh Jackman goes, I fixed the water heater. It's either scalding hot or freezing cold. It's fucking brutal. And the makeup is so well done when they bring Viola Davis in and they take off the hood for the first time, and Paul Dano's face is
God,
a bloody pulp.
Dude.
It's horrifying.
That is some of the best makeup. I'm serious. Some of the best makeup. Because, it is legitimately horrifying when you see that.
He's a monster.
Oh, my God. A monster, yeah. And that's exactly how they want him to be portrayed,
Yes,
too.
exactly.
It's brilliant.
And I think it's the kind of thing that if he's not a monster, Hugh Jackman's going to turn him into the monster that he needs him to be. It's a why. But I love the scene. There's a really, really good cinematography shot of when Paul Dano's in the shower and you just get the light. And it's just showing his eyes. It's terrifying. Yeah. Because, I mean, it makes you feel like you're in that spot, too. That you're in there with him pitch dark. And you get the only light you have is from. And he can only hear people talking about torturing him. It's the only conversation ever taking place.
Yeah.
So he's like,
Gotta suck.
I'm picking up on some stuff, and it does not sound good.
Doesn't sound good for me.
Yeah.
Sound like I'm gonna have a good couple of days here.
But it's a wild, it's a thrill ride.
It is. You know, another thing too is, typically we talk about runtimes in films and how they're just too long. Well, this movie, Cash, sits at 2 hours and 33 minutes. Okay, I thought every second was worthy of the time that this film was.
Yeah,
every second of it.
This is one where I agree. I mean, more than any film, this film feels like it's an hour and a half. Mm-hmm. It just flies by, man.
Really
There's once they get kidnapped, there is no fucking scene that's not like, oh my God.
And that's the thing.
Yeah.
I mean, let's talk about that. They get kidnapped it's not like in a half an hour build-up.
No, they don't set up any, they set up a relationship that's, the very first scene they set up is him hunting.
Yep.
And that kind of portrays that immediately builds what kind of guy Hugh Jackman is, what kind of guy, and what kind of how he's raising his son too.
Yes.
How he's raising his son probably a lot different than how his dad raised him.
Right.
But yeah, it gets right into it. We get the RV, and as soon as you see that fucking RV,
it's not good.
But the tension of when they first realize the kids are gone, it's horrifying.
It's horrifying and so authentic.
So good because it's just that randomness of like you're trying to figure out what's happening.
Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, can you just imagine?
Because at first they're like, they're probably just at the house,
right?
And they're like, oh no, that's right at the park. And then you're just lying to yourself at that point.
Yeah.
And then the kid comes up and gets like, they were playing on the RV.
Yeah. What? Oh, by the way, some creepy RV was parked there, and this guy was just staring at him.
And then the scene, every scene you can break down, but the scene when they find the RV at the truck stop, and it's Loki, Gyllenhaal, and he tries to get out, and then just straight
right
up
into the tree,
rams it. Wild.
Yeah. And that's another really awesome thing because the whole time you're like, why did he try to escape? He's guilty.
Yeah, that's when it's really trying to build up that. But then it's like, oh, he's mentally handicapped.
Well, he's panicked. Yeah, of course. Yeah, but you don't even know that though until after he gets out of the RV, until after the crash.
Yeah, but that's when you start realizing once they get him and he can't talk around it. That's when it starts building to. That's probably why he escaped. Imagine a 9-year-old being hunted
by a bunch of police. You're gonna panic and just
take off. Absolutely, yeah. But yeah, every scene is just edge of your seat. Mm-hmm. Let's talk about the ending. It's one of my favorite endings of any movie of all time. Is when it's just so well done. When Loki figures out where the girl is finally, he goes to Paul Dano's house and the aunt, who's played by another, I think, Academy or Melissa Leo. Oh no, Melissa Leo had to wear a bunch of makeup in that. Holly Jones. But when he goes to the aunt and you realize the aunt is the fucking villain, the arch villain.
Yeah. Well, here was the thing with Hugh Jackman. Okay, this is the one gripe I had, and this is so minor. It's so minor, but I'm just thinking of it from my perspective. If I'm going to threaten to kill someone, which I would never do, I'll put that out there.
Well, I would maybe if your daughter was.
Yeah, but
let's be honest. I get some crazy ass.
Look, what you put on lady. The airwaves, I just have to clarify everything. But in that situation, right? In all seriousness, I do not turn my back at the sink.
Yeah.
And not have a weapon ready if I'm about to threaten someone's life.
Well, I think it's the kind of thing. It's like it's that you don't believe that this lady has killed 6.
Right.
This lady, and I get that. This lady who he has met multiple times since this final scene, and every time she is she's a great fucking actor. Every
she's a good host.
Exactly.
Come in,
and my poor, you just can't believe that this lady who is looking after a mentally handicapped nephew. And who also her husband left her just out of the blue one day. Really, we find out he went to the pastor's house, and the pastor said, "I gotta take God's work into my own."
Hey, look here.
These are God's.
This motherfucker is bragging about killing 16 children like it's another day in the park.
Yeah,
I'm gonna kill this motherfucker.
Which that is such a crazy scene too. When he goes to the pastor's house, and the pastor was a pedophile, wasn't he?
Yes.
He was on the list of
registered sex offenders.
Yes, and it just so happened to be that this guy went to this guy, and the pastor goes, "Hey, come to my house later.
Yeah.
I like what you're saying right now. I'm picking up what you're putting down, brother.
So why don't you just
take a little, have some drinks, come to my house. We'll talk about this whole 16 kids you said?
16?
Decent.
Nice. Good
Decent
amount.
numbers.
Good amount of children. Okay.
For the Catholic Church, though,
he's like,
gotta amp those numbers up.
He's like, respect.
I'm only at 14 right now, so I got
a ways to
I got a
work
lot to go, but I could get some details from you. I think we could work together. But yeah, the guy's like, yeah,
sure, I'm coming over. Let's do it.
But
I do love that scene, though. In all seriousness, when we get to the priest's house.
Oh, and you think it's you think it's the priest for a little bit.
For a little bit, but I love how the secret passageway or whatever the secret basement is revealed. Because it's so subtle, but it's so true, right? If you're a detective, you would see that kind of thing. It's just an outlet. But the cord is plugged in a very weird manner where it goes straight across and you can tell the cord's going somewhere else.
Yeah, and
it's so smart. It's so subtle and so smart.
And this movie, like I said, keeps you on the edge the entire time. Just like the writing of him going to the priest's house and the priest on the ground. And the first thing you think is he's dead.
Yeah.
Someone's like going around pre-killing these people.
Because he's looking through the window. Yeah, and he breaks through the door.
He's dead. And you could easily just had him in a chair or something, but that just gives you more of that kind of that thrill.
And not knowing what's going on.
Yeah, and then Jake Gyllenhaal breaks in and then he finds out he's just drunk. And then, like you said, the mystery revolves around moving the fridge out of the way and then finding the guy that's been down there. Quite a while.
Yeah, I'd say a fair amount of decay.
Yeah, but he's got the maze.
He does. The pennant around his neck still.
Yeah.
Still taped to that chair.
I don't know. Yeah, unfortunately. He just kind of, boop, I'm not going to deal with this anymore.
He's like, I'll clean it up later in a few
decades.
Yeah, a few decades. Let it decay. I'll just sweep up the bones later on.
Yeah, but the whole thing's crazy. But that final scene when Loki comes and it's kind of a shootout. He shoots, but he gets the blood in his eye, and then it's a race against the clock.
And he gets grazed too.
But then the camera work is so fucking great with like him driving and like the lens flares of the lights blinding him because of the blood, and then the girl and it's just like it's heart pounding for those 10 minutes. You're on the edge of your seat. You have no idea how this is going to end.
And that's the thing too. I think.
And then Hugh Jackman stuck in the.
Yeah.
He's dead. No one's ever going to find his ass.
No.
It's freezing outside, snowing. I think they're in Michigan.
Yeah, somewhere cold.
Yeah, so it's not looking good for Hugh.
It's like 20 below.
Yeah.
All right.
Parked old Trans Am on there. You're not getting that. But I just, that final scene, it's one of my favorite last scenes of any movie ever. It's just so well done. So you just really don't know if he's going to make it.
That's what I was about to say too, is like the setup with the film and the way the film, the story went along. Like in this instance, in this type of film, it could have ended suddenly with, the villain winning.
Yeah.
In a sense, or like a very open-ended, like The Departed, for instance, right? You think Leo saves the day, and then bah.
Yeah. Oh, you get no sense this is going to end happily.
No, and I didn't have a sense that Jake Gyllenhaal was going to live and everything was going to, and so I just liked it. I liked the way that it ended because, as you said, you were on the edge of your seat. You really did not know. Sometimes you can predict movies, but with this one, I was like, shit.
And his fucking driving but it's so cool because it does first person, so it's like. He gets grazed on the top of the head by a bullet, so blood is pouring in his eye.
Unfortunately.
He's fading in and out.
Yes.
And the girl's in the back, she's fucking fading in and out. It is wild. But it doesn't end super happy because obviously the dad's going to have repercussions of torturing a mentally handicapped guy.
Yeah, it's rough.
But it's still the sense that, he was right. From all that, because at that point, towards the end, you just think Hugh Jackman lost it.
Yeah.
You don't think he's right anymore. But at the very end, it confirms that Paul Dano's character, he did take the kids. But I mean, you could never in any capacity throw him in prison.
Right.
I mean, he could never stand trial for one. He's got an IQ of a 9-year-old.
Yep.
But you get the sense that there's going to be repercussions of Hugh Jackman torturing him and everything.
Absolutely. And I like how it just ended. We didn't need all that. We didn't need to see it where Hugh Jackman was.
No, we know what's going to happen.
Jake Gyllenhaal shows back. Loki shows back up to the house, to Holly's house, right? Yeah. After all of this went down, and then I love the sound design of this too, because like at first, I thought I was like, I'm hearing that whistle, right? Because I thought it was supposed to be like a thing, and then the whistle starts getting a little bit louder and louder. And they set it up too because Hugh Jackman finds her whistle down there.
Yeah.
I like the way it ended. So you hear a whistle a couple times and then boom, movie's over.
Yep.
You don't need anything else.
You know
after
that he made it.
Yeah, and you don't need Jake Gyllenhaal, backing up the car and being like,
him
"Oh, we saved you,"
and then embracing the family. Nope. No, that's the
great
thing.
ending.
It didn't, even though, well, obviously it was 2 hours 30. They probably couldn't push anymore,
No,
but it just felt perfect. It didn't, like we said earlier, it didn't feel like it was prolonged or cut short or anything like that. It was just the perfect ending.
I totally agree.
I don't say that very often, but that it was the perfect ending in my opinion.
Very satisfying too. You know?
And what a badass detective. If you want to be a fucking detective,
Still undefeated.
he's fucking when he was going crazy at his desk when he was so pissed. Because trust me, the fucking chief was doing everything he can to fuck this case up.
I know.
Which I liked, because if you've read about any serial killer or anything, the only reason they have gone so long without getting
Negligence by the police.
Shoddy police work.
That's what it is.
So I like that they were showing, but every once in a while you read about a case and there'll be one fucking super cop who in real life who just like takes this case so personally and does the correct work. That was really realistic, I thought, was showing that there was one guy that was really passionate. Because you kind of get the sense that a lot of people are just, clocking in and clocking out. And like you said, after 24 hours or 48 hours, I'm sure in a lot of detective minds, you're not finding this kid.
Yeah.
So for him to be so passionate 5 days later, 6 days later, he was a fucking super cop.
He was.
But he had who knows? He had a Freemason ring. He might have been an angel, might have been a devil. We can't confirm it.
No, we cannot confirm nor deny.
In my mind, though, Jake Gyllenhaal is always an angel.
He is an angel, even when he's mysterious.
Blessed from above, except in Nightcrawler.
Nightcrawler.
But that's just how fucking good Jake Gyllenhaal is. He can flip the switch. And like you said, his physicality in roles, like he brought the Nightcrawler losing, he lose 40 pounds or something? He was skin and bone. He can transform himself.
He can.
He's so good. And he's not afraid to do a superhero film either. He's one of those guys that will take any role that interests him.
I thought he did a great job as Mysterio.
He did do it.
I really thought
and we'll
he
see
did
more
a
of
great
him.
job. I hope so.
We'll definitely see more of Mysterio. He'll be in the Sinister Six.
Well, yeah, because Mysterio, he's still around.
He was a huge part of that whole film. So yeah. All right, what do you think about it, Mason? Your first time seeing it?
Yeah, dude. I mean, I loved it. I honestly really love this. Like this, I wish. Obviously, I can't. It's 2013. But as far as movies that I have never seen that I've seen this year, it definitely hits top.
Yeah, I know. I know if you saw it in 2013, it'd be.
It would have hit my list.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, I think it was my favorite film of 2013.
Yeah,
This is a film I've seen probably 4 or 5 times now, but it was my introduction, like I said, to Denis Villeneuve, and now look at him.
crushing it.
This film set him up.
It did.
I mean, this was his first big American film, and now him and Jake Gyllenhaal have a cool bromance going on. They've done another film together. Now they're doing a series together.
I love the bromance. Keep it up.
I love the director-actor bromance.
Yes.
We see a lot of that.
We see that with Scorsese.
Scorsese, a lot of directors. Yeah, love to link up. But all right.
Alrighty. Well, that is our review for the 2013 film Prisoners. If you guys like what you've seen here, please be sure to like this video, comment below, subscribe to the channel, and hit that bell notification as we drop videos here every single day. If you'd like to listen to us in audio format, you can find our podcast where we do movie reviews, television recaps, and movie news. You can find that Spotify, iTunes, SoundCloud, Google Play, and Stitcher. Our social media pages, Instagram, Facebook, Have You Seen It Podcast, Twitter, Seen It Podcast. And if you guys want some Have You Seen It merch, you can find that link in the description below. Thank you so much for watching and listening. My name is Mason Knight. That is Cash Kraus. And until next time.
Bye.